Hey everyone, today we will be building this file sorter using Node.js. It's a script I had laying around for a while because I'm really bad at keeping my files organized and they always end up like this all over the place. So what this script does is it takes them and by the extension it determines where they belong to, and if you run it, it will move them all to their own folder. So videos, images, documents, audio. Obviously, you can extend it, customize it to your own need. So stay tuned and let's get started. Let's start with creating an object where we will define the file extensions we will use. So we call it file extensions. The object key will be later used as the folder name. So we create images, videos, audio, and let's add the documents. To store all the extensions that belong to a single folder, we will use an array. I will paste in this part, but you can find the code on my GitHub linked in the descriptions. Now the next step will be to find all the files in our current folder. To do that, I will create a function called readFolder that will be responsible for doing that, and it will also be our main function. So let's also invoke it on the bottom. So readFolder, and let's call it. Now inside this method, we will use the fs.promises.readDir method to read the current folder. What this method does is it reads all the files inside your current folder that you pass in, and it will return an array of strings. This will require our current folder or current location, right? Now we can hardcode the current folder, but instead let's have a default folder which will be the current folder that we are in, but we also allowed the folder path to be passed in as an argument. So we can achieve that by creating a new variable, and this will be the argument you pass in. So when you invoke the function, your terminal, you can pass in a path, but if you don't, we will just use it in the current directory. Now we can continue with our readFolder function. Now inside our readFolder function, let's add a try catch, and inside that we will use the fs.promises.readDir method that can read all the files in your current folder, and we will pass in the new variable we just created. So let's add a try catch block. We will need to import the file system module for that. So you just need to do this. And while we are already here, let's also add in this because we will need it later. Now back to the try catch block. Now we can actually invoke and get all the files inside our folder. So files equals await file system.promises.readDir, and we pass in the current directory. If there is an error, we sure want to log that. I'll just say unable to scan directory and pass in the log too, so it will help us with debugging. Now this will give us an array of strings representing our files. With this we can move on to finding the extension for each file and which folder they belong to. To do that, I will create another function that will do that for us. I will call it findExtension, and it will receive a string that will be our file name, and it will return which folder it belongs to. So here we can use a built-in function to give us the extension of our file. It's called path.xname, and it receives the file that we passed in. So let's assign it to file extension. So now we have our file extension. So the only thing we need to do is loop through our object file extensions from previously, and we loop through this and we check every array and see which array contains our extension that we just found here. And once we find the match, we return the object key, and that will be our destination folder. We will just do this. So we loop through object.entries, which gives us access to both the object keys and values at the same time. So we can loop through this. We pass in our object that we are iterating through, and we will call find on it. And here we just get the extensions, which will be the arrays. We don't care about the object key in this situation, at least not yet. And we return extensions that includes file extension. And we will also just do this for error handling. And once we have that, we just return the folder name. So that should work for now. Now that we can find the extension and destination of a file, let's get back to the read folder function and loop through our existing files. For every iteration, we will do the following. First, we will get the destination folder. Second, if there is a destination folder, we will create a destination path combining our current folder and destination. So that's where our file will be moved. Create a new path for file. Third, we will check if the destination path exists already or not, meaning do we have already the folder, for example, images generated or not. If we already have an images folder and we're gonna reuse that, we don't need to recreate it again. But if we don't have an images folder and we try to move something in there, then we will have an error. So we need to create folder, destination folder if it doesn't exist. And lastly, we will move our file to the destination folder. So let's start doing that by looping through the array of strings which represents our files. So for that, what we can do is just use a simple for loop. And here we create a destination. So we invoke our find extension method with the current file we are iterating through. And if there is a destination, because we might pass in an invalid file or something that has no extension, then we obviously don't want to try to run it further. But if there is a match, then we will create the destination path. Destination path equals path.resolve, and we will pass in the current directory and the destination. And next, we will create the folder if it doesn't exist. So you might have noticed we don't have this yet. So let's define our create folder function that will take a string as an argument that will be the path of our destination. So const create folder. We will use the fs.promises.mkdir or make directory function, and I will show you that in a second. So let's wrap it in a try catch as always, and let's start by logging out the error if we encounter one. Unable to create directory. Yep. So now this will be a very simple one. We will just call this method mkdir as mentioned. So this will create a new folder for us by the path you pass in, and I will pass in this to recursive true. So the recursive flag is true, but this is optional. It helps you create nested folders, as it will create all folders that doesn't exist yet. So this is really helpful if you have multiple folders down and there are folders in between that doesn't exist. So it will create everything recursively if all the folders that doesn't exist. Now that we know our destination folder exists, we can create and invoke our movefile function. This function will receive two arguments, destination and file, and they will be both strings. So let's define it quickly. Movefile. So this will be destination and file. To move the file, we will use the rename method. To use this, we will need the current path of the file and the new path where we want our file to live. So let's create these two constants. I will name them source path. So path of resolve, current directory, and the file we have, and the destination path, and that will be path.join, the destination we passed in, and the file. Once that's done, let's wrap it in a try-catch as usual and invoke the rename method. So let's start with the try-catch. Yep, let's display the error message as always. Unable to move file, and the error to help us with debugging. Now let's invoke the rename method. So that will be fairly straightforward. So you just pass this in, and the first argument is the current path, and the second argument is the destination path. So basically, you move your file from this location to this location. It's fairly simple, and I will add in one more log just to help us with visibility. So let's say file moved to destination path. So this will give us a nice log. So I will start to remove these comments because we don't really need them anymore. And here, so we created our move file function, but we haven't invoked it yet. So we can do that here. So move file, the destination path, and the file. So to walk through it quickly, we get all our files from the current folder, we look through it, and we find the extension for the current file we are iterating on. If we have an extension, then we create a new destination. So basically this will return images, videos, or anything. So we create a new path that will say, for example, here I'm in the file sorter folder, then it will say file sorter / images. So next we will check if that folder exists already, file sorter / images. If it exists, right here, if it exists, then it won't do anything. But if it doesn't exist, then it will create a new folder in this path and we will have access to it. And once we do, we can actually take our file and move it from its current path, wherever that may be, to inside our newly created or already existing folder. Now let's see if it works. We create a few test files with the following command. I will have it in the description if you follow along. And if you check, it created us a lot of files. They all have different extensions. So you can just run it with this and we see the logs that it's been moved to all different folders. So we can quickly overview it. So you see all the audio files are in our audio folder, documents are in our documents folder, images, videos, and so on. Seems like it all works. Let me know if this was helpful in any way, or if there is a topic you would like me to cover on this channel in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.